Okay, welcome back, everybody. It's been 4 days or so since I played. Work has been extremely busy for me, so I had to take a brief break from this. But we are here to continue the escape, which I kind of thought I was going to close on because we've already killed the person the target that Loomer had originally, and that was Reckonwood. He's dead. DED dead. We took him out in this right here. Took him out right here. I have some notes left over here, so just so I don't forget things, because I don't really jot down notes as much as I used to for these solo RPGs. But Lumer's right here. We just looted a bunch of stuff that you guys can see on my character sheet. Let me move over here. There we go. So we picked up, I believe, we picked up some of these items here. I believe I'll retrace my steps, but that's what we have now. Our stats are as follows. We still have some strength to regain, but that will require a long week's rest. So right now, uh, our two allies, unbeknownst to, well, we ran back down this hallway to loot because Luma remembered there's still stuff here, and our two allies are waiting for us here. We have the halfling, we have our prisoner. Those are nicknames I've given them, and then these two right here are the other two allies, the remaining two that we're looking for, in a way, in a manner, they may or may not be in this room until Loomer is in that general area. So let's go ahead and erase our notes. Loomer just looted, so these guys may or may not be in this room. And then let's go ahead and have Loomer turn around. We'll roll to see if there's anyone behind Loomer here, which the chances are highly unlikely. So we'll go ahead and keep that -4. We're gonna roll our usual d20 to see if there's anybody in front of Loomer at the moment. -4, highly unlikely. There is no one in front of Loomer. So Loomer is clear to walk, and now we're walking up here. Let's say a couple of questions we can ask for this hallway in front of us. This is the main entrance, so that does increase the likelihood of someone stumbling in. It also, because of the time it spent we looted the pile of loot here, our allies either went to continue on looking for their friends or they went back to check on us. So that'll be a possibility. We're going to keep that split 50-50, but let's add a +2 to see if there's a likely that someone stumbled in here. So let's roll the d20 to ask the Oracle, did anybody stumble into the main entrance? 7 + 2, so that's 9. It's possible. I believe at that point, Loomer can hear voices and chatter somewhere outside. It's not a strong roll, but it's faint voices coming from the outside. So Loomer, that basically makes Loomer think that time is of the essence and we should probably keep going to look for other two friends. And I think Loomer's having second thoughts about this whole idea because we've already killed Reckonwood, and he may perhaps um, Loomer will help uh, these two find the two remaining friends and then call it a day. Say that he's completed his mission. He needs to jet out of here, which might upset these two. We'll get to that. So, but generally the area is clear. Loomer is going to um, walk across the main entrance here, even though we heard faint voices in the distance. Loomer's running up. So um, while he's on his way, let's roll to see if there's anybody that pops up right here. Now, let's keep it possible and roll for it. It's possible there's no modifier. 10. I believe at that point, when Loomer turns the corner here, that because it's 10, it's right in the middle of the road of a roll, that the we have our taller friend and a halfling. We're about to go check on Loomer. And Loomer is obviously visible and already on his way. They stop and they say, about time. Halfling says, we gotta go. We hear voices, and then that's obviously referencing Well, we could also roll to see if they also heard the voices. Let's see if they heard the voices before I continue that narrative step. Let's because of their distance, they're here. We heard the voices in this general style tile right there. Let's roll. Unlikely they heard the voices. So -2 on whatever this is. Did they hear the voices? 14. So they did hear the voices, and then they actually heard them pretty. I mean, 14, that's two above them, maybe. So they generally heard some voices. And Loomer agrees, and so they bolt out. They basically turn around and head towards this area. Loomer is behind. And they're walking briskly. They don't want to run into anything. Um, I'm going to assume that uh, our prisoner friend. I probably should give these guys names. So let's go ahead and make some think of some names for these guys because I'm getting pretty tired of just naming them friend, halfling, these two other guys. My it's my job as the warden for Cairn here, just to have names for Loomer to speak to. So let's note these down in our character sheet to continue. The halfling is the most important character so far, aside from Loomer. So halfling, his name, let's call him. We're not using an oracle or anything. We're not using a reference sheet. Let's call him Gree. Let's call him Gree. And then let's see. We have this gentleman right here with the sword. This guy is holding. Once we get these two, we can give them names. Maybe at this point, Loomer, he, while they're walking up the stairs, narratively to give a reason why we have names all of a sudden, is that Loomer's walking behind us. Hey, what are your guys' names after all this time? Halfling says, kind of in a nasally voice, I'm Green. And then um, the other ally. So we'll do ally. We'll do ally number one. Green is ally, obviously. He's basically patient zero in this whole situation. Ally number one is Darlo. Darlock. Let's do a Darlock. He's Darlock. He says I'm Darlock, and I'll do a little quotations to sorry parentheses that he is wielding the sword. Because this guy right here he's wielding, it looks to be like a large hatchet if I'm not mistaken, but basically he looks like this. That's even a hatchet. I could be off by a mile. And this guy holding obviously a gun, which is not part of this universe, but that's all the figures I chose. That's the figures I chose to use with the characters. So these guys are not present obviously yet in the scene. So sword is basically Darlock, um, and we'll continue on from there. So Darlock pauses and he says, "Let's see if there's anyone in this room." They pause. Now, can they hear anyone or see anybody in this general the fog of war? It's right here. And deja vu because Bree and Loomer have been in this room already. So it's obviously there's a lack of loot. There's nothing in this room of value, as far as we remember. So let's roll to see. Let's keep it possible that if there's anybody in this room. Roll this. There is somebody in this room. So we're going to erase this fog of war right here. And Loomer and Gree are standing behind the wall. Darlock is being rather brave, and he's just peeking around the corner to see if he can spot anybody. Now, is there more than one person in this room? Let's just keep it possible. That's a solid ones, which means there is one person in this room. I'm going to remove our possible ally. I'm going to put them off to the left. Left is friendlies, right will be enemies eventually. Is this person a threat? No modifier on this one. Keep it random. 13, somewhat a threat. So obviously that would not be either of our two friends. This would be a potential threat. Now, what do we learn from our past conflicts? We dealt with bandits, we dealt with goblins. So those are our two go-to villains for the story. They're basically encompassing this entire fortress, and there's still obviously a fight for power, a fight for ownership of this fortress. And I would say that since if I recall correctly, the bandits had it when we started the story, and now the goblins are fighting for it back because they claim it's their original land, their original base of operations. So I'd say because of the time and because of the amount of, let's say, goblins we've seen so far, this will be favorably a goblin. So we can simply roll. Here's what we can do. We can do two d20s. The first number left is the chances are it's a bandit. The second result on the number is it's a goblin. So technical error. 1 second, guys. I'm trying again. The website just froze on me. 2d20s. The first one is a bandit. Okay, so it is a goblin. Now, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking ahead of it. I'm going to re-roll because I completely forgot what I said earlier, trying to fix that issue. The first number is a bandit. Second number is a goblin. Bandit, goblin, bandit. It's a goblin. Okay, it's a goblin. But because we rolled it, it wasn't severely a threat. I'm wondering if this goblin is not exactly a warrior or fighter. So this is interesting. It's a goblin, but it's not entirely a threat. Let's say the goblin does the goblin spot Darlock or see him peek around the corner? It's 6, he doesn't. So he's even with an 8. Okay, so the goblin is this is a goblin. Let's just note that in the room. The goblin is suspicious. He thinks he hears something. Loomer. Um, Darlock uh steps away really quick. He moves back and he tells Loomer and Gree he sees a goblin there, but he's not a threat. This goes to tell me that this goblin is drunk. That this goblin is basically he got carried away and had a few drinks because he's not a threat. He technically is part of the antagonist group of characters in the story, but he's not a threat at the moment because he's drunk. So they wait for a second or two. He peeks back around. We're talking about Darlock here, and he sees. Let's go ahead and roll a certainty +6 that this guy is drunk. Not like drunk off his ass, but he's just drunk. He's not really he can hear what's going on around him, but he's not really exactly paying attention. So +6 that he's drunk. So that'd be 14. Um, so yeah, so he's buzzed. He's borderline buzzed drunk. And appropriately, he's at this table. He's sitting with his back turned, which also tells us that this guy is not exactly in the best position to fight. So if you can see him, I'm sorry, these are clear figures. He's right there because the camera angle is like it's like perfectly. He's not even visible to you guys. But for now, Loomer tells again. He says we can proceed on this way, or should we take him out? Now he's offering the idea to us. Does the halfling believe this? Halfling has been he's had enough courage to go on this whole little adventure with us. So I'd say it's likely that he wants to continue on because he's not exactly a fighter, but he's willing to fight to defend himself at this point. Let's say it's just possible that he wants to take out this goblin because one less goblin is one to worry about in the future. So possible that he's willing to take out this goblin with the advantage of him being drunk. Possible. 6. The halfling's hesitant. He's a little iffy on the idea. He says the goblin's not exactly an issue for us. We can continue on. Loomer, we're controlling Loomer here. Loomer agrees with the halfling. He says, "Let's just move on. This guy won't be a problem. He'll probably be drunk off his ass in a couple minutes." So, as majority vote, this is a democratic system. The Darlock agrees, and they turn around. Now, during this whole moment, has anything happened around us? Let's roll for this. Believe it possible. Something significant happens. That's a pretty high roll. If it was a solid 20, it would be an immediate threat. Did somebody show up? We're never gonna get past this math at this at this pace. But let's see. Does somebody show up? Let's say, well, obviously that's a heavy likely. That's highly likely. Plus 4 on this roll. That is another 18. That is insane. So somebody shows up. Is this is it more than one person? We'll leave it possible. I'm hoping for 8. It's one person who is able to call for reinforcements at that point. It's a maybe. Let's just say it's one person because that's really middle of the road. It's almost a no. Is it a threat? Is this person a threat, whoever's showing up? So let's get a enemy piece ready in case. Is it a threat? No modifier. It is possibly a threat. So let's say, okay, well, again, let's roll for who it could be. Well, 2d20s, bandit first number, goblin second number. Wow, it's pretty darn close. So it's a goblin. It's another goblin. So this guy right here is a goblin, and he walks in. Oh, okay, let's roll. Let's roll for left number is this stairwell. Higher, the second number is to my right here, to where he currently is positioned. So I'll wait on this one. Stairwell, 20. That's a solid 20. He is right here. He's literally facing us, and Bloomer, uh, Bree backs are turned while we rolled for this because either of us would have seen anything from either side. Uh, Now we did roll a 12 to be saying it's a threat, so it's a borderline threat. Uh, so we got Darlock here can see the goblin over Loomer's shoulder way back here. So obviously, we don't have to roll for this. Uh, Darlock sees this as a threat, and he basically runs up. He says "Goblin," and then Loomer turns around. Halfling is bravely behind. Now we still have this goblin here drinking his ass off. Okay, so we have a potential encounter here. Is this goblin? Let's pull out the character sheet for goblins just to get it ready. Okay, so if you guys can barely see it, my apologies. 150, there we go. That's much better. Oh, let's make my character sheet bigger for the Cairn sheet here. Now, is this goblin what we can roll to decide now to add some diversity in this game, to add some, I should say, more of a challenge, even though Kieran's pretty challenging already, is that this is like a captain or a high-ranking goblin of sorts, not just an a lower level fighter. Let's roll. Let's say possible. Is a high-ranking goblin of any sorts. It's a middle of the range. Okay, it's a captain. It's if there's a ranking system for whatever system they use, it's a step or two above infantry. So we're looking at lieutenant or captain. Now, because of that, I'd say we give it a possible. We are going to use strength to detail it, but we are obviously in another combat. Now, at this point, it's making Loomer worried that this little adventure he's on with his two comrades, trying to find our remaining two nameless friends, is getting out of hand. They've already had a conflict here. They've already had possibly they had a conflict down here, and we have had past situations already, and he's just trying to help at this point. But again, that's one of his character traits, which Karen lets you choose is he's addicted, he's vengeful, but he's also honorable to help. But the problem is the addiction can become a misfortune, which landed him in this whole situation to begin with. He was captured for cheating in a card game. Now, uh, let's detail the health here. So as usual, 4, line 8. 8 is the strength that I've been using just as a like core HP reaches 0 and you're dead. 4 is like the first in the line of defense to the character. Now, um, let's go ahead and I'd say because Darlock ran up first, that we have the attack. Our party has an attack first. So let's pull up. Let's pull up. This is like basing off bandits, right? We were using bandits. I believe bandit statistics for our character for Darlock, and then the halfling had its own. He had its own page. There he is. Halfling. Okay, so 4-8, 4-11. So um, we have 4-11 for Darlock. All right, Darlock here. We have this Goblin Captain, Captain, Lieutenant, whichever, and then the Halfling, Gree. I'll write it down here because we're not in this general area. Gree is a 4-8, I believe. 4-8. So we're in another combat situation. And again, this is making Loomer really get some anxiety on this whole situation. Even though he's a mercenary, he's getting worried. We're going to roll each of our attacks. We have a D6. We'll do high damage possible. D6 basically, and Halfling. He doesn't. I forgot. We don't have the. He doesn't have the weapon. I don't recall. Again, I don't have notes on. I don't have track notes as detailed as I should, but I think he just has a D4, a melee attack. Halfling does not have a weapon, if I'm not mistaken. So D4, and then the bandit is a D6 weapon. So and then we can't forget the goblin friend. He has a D6 also, but he has to get pretty close. He's not close enough. So Loomer is going to rush up, and so is the bandit. I'm sorry, the goblin. Rush up. Loomer dies. Oh, I keep hitting it over. Loomer is on Darlock's side, and we strike first. So we have a D6, and we have our weapon of choice, which is an axe. So we have a D8, which is right here. And the halfling, Griza weapon of choice is a D4. Whichever the highest roll is the amount of damage done to the goblin. 6. So, it takes 6 damage, so or the hit protection, I should say, is down to 0. That's that. 6, and then 2 more for down. So his strength is now down to 6. And what he has to do is now he attacks, but he's badly wounded, but um, not enough to slow down his attacks at this point. We'll give him that. Goblin's attack is a d6, so we'll give him this, and then we'll roll for it. 2. He does 2 damage to Darlock because Darlock was the first one he saw. So Darlock is going to take 2 damage. Could have done a little worse, but that's what we rolled. 2 damage. And then it's our turn again. We're going to roll for it. Again, we roll a d6, d4, and then our d8. The highest one is the damage taken. 5. Now he is bleeding out. He was basically in the same shape as Reckonwood was earlier, so he's down to 1 health. Now, at this point, does the goblin plead for mercy? Let's say highly likely, +4. So that's 13. He starts to beg for mercy, like barely noticeable. He starts to beg. And does I'd say Loomer hesitates, but he was a threat because he is dangerous. His reputation is dangerous, but he's also honorable, so he hesitates. But I have a feeling that Darlock is not so merciful. So does Darlock strike him dead right there? Let's say highly likely, +4 in this roll. Oh, that was almost a crit. He does a 10. That's really middle of the road. I think, I don't know why, but that's pretty strange. That Darlock, he has the sword. Okay, I'm sorry. Goblin's on the floor, bleeding out. For some reason, Darlock is really hesitating here to kill this goblin. Does the halfling step in? Does Gree step in? Unlikely, -2. He does. I think Gree walks up and he says, "All this murder has really been slowing you down." And surprisingly, Gree finishes him off. So he's dead. 16 is a pretty good roll, even with the -2. So that goblin is dead. We didn't take any damage. Only Darlock did. I have an idea. I'm going to do statistics right here. Darlock is -2 with the 4, and he has the sword. Sword figure. Just it's a mental note for me. Gree is at the 4-8. 4-8. There we go. Darlock is at -2. There we go. Okay, so with everything that happened, let's erase our stats. Loomer turns around to recall that there was a goblin in here. And does he see anybody behind him? Or does he see anybody since he turned around? Let's just give it possible. He hears the goblin drinking more. So obviously the goblin did not, this goblin right here, did not notice any, didn't hear this bout that happened, this fight. So he's still in there drinking his ass off. And I say he's probably even more drunk than before. So Loomer recognizes that he's not a threat. But okay, at this point, Loomer is seeing is we can't forget the formerly prisoner now free. They decide as a group to go back to basically seek revenge, get try to find more prisoners to free. But we lost these two guys, so there's mixed concepts here for everything, and also bad narrative storytelling on my part because again, I'm new to this, so we're trying to work out the kinks, trial and error. Now, to further develop his character, Darlock, he is in an impasse if he should continue this or not. Remember, he was formerly captive. He's free now, but he's back in battle. Let's say it's likely that Darlock is having second thoughts about all this. Let's roll for it to see what happens. He is having that's plus the two modifier, so he's 18, 19. So Darlock is covered in blood. Um, just humanity kicked in. Darlock is looking at his battered clothes. He has blood all over him, and he's like kind of looking at his hands like this. Sorry if you guys can't see me. He's like looking at his hands like this. He's like, "What am I doing? I should be going home now." Like that was over. So Loomer can see him shaking, and Darlock sets his weapon down, and he says, "I think I'm done." And Loomer recognizes that this man has been battle worn, and he's killed enough, not in a sense, but he's killed enough for today. So Loomer says, "If you have to go, I'd say go now before more goblins show up or even bandits." And then Loomer looks to the halfling, looks to Greed. And what about greed? Because this could be a this could be a domino effect. Um, if one goes, the lesser of the two, who is simply following along for the situation, could also leave. So highly likely, does greed have the same current resolve? Plus, yes, I forgot what my modifier to. So 14. He does. Like he thinks for a moment, and he says, Uh, Even though these two guys are still out and about, he says that, yeah, I think this is too much for me. So the halfling doesn't have as much blood battered on him, but he's recognizing, seeing that Darlock is shaken, not stirred, uh, with fear in his eyes. He's not a vetted warrior, but he can fight to defend himself. So this was just this was just too much for him. So Limmer says, if you guys gotta go, you gotta go. Make your way out now before more show up. Like he just repeats himself. So do they leave? Because we're rolling for the current situation. They want to go, and we can kick them out of the story at this point. We can simply roll for certainty. Do they both leave? With on mind, we still have these two guys here that we have to find. Do they leave? Yeah, they do. So certainty is a +6. So they, I mean, it's not a solid 20, but they leave. So Loomer pats Darlock on the back and says, "Good luck out there." And then Green nods to Loomer. They make their way out. And remember, there was voices out there. So Loomer slowly watches them walk out with his eyes to his back. Do they walk out with any problems? Let's say possible, without any problems. Okay, yeah, they walk out fine. So they're out here. They are gone. Loomer is alone in this fortress with dead goblins, dead bandits. Who knows what is back there? Loomer turns around looking down this hallway with two possible paths right now to take. He can continue the story to try to find these two to see if it's even worth it. He's already killed Reckonwood, but technically these are allies, and two are already safe. They're gone. So technically there's less to worry about, but there's also less armor for him. There's less protection during fights. He's more vulnerable to damage. And Loomer's on impasse. He also looks at the door. So he has to decide what we control Loomer. It's our choice. But at this moment, this roll, we're gonna roll for it. This will decide the future of the escape. We will leave it possible. We'll do two D20s, which is my own little way of rolling for certain situations. The first number is yes, the second number is no. This will decide Loomer's path. Yes, he continues on. That's a very strong yes, too. Loomer, with confidence, looks up the stairwell. He walks back up, and he's at the top of the flight of stairs. And in front of him, just to get to this map, he walks up to the opening, peeks over to see if the goblin is still drunk or passed out. Let's say with a certainty, is the goblin passed out? The drunk goblin who's drinking. 14. He is. He's out. That's a plus with this modifier. So he's collapsed. So Limmer laughs, but here's what he realizes. There's a goblin drinking right here. They've gotten awfully comfortable at this point if there's a goblin drinking, which means that most bandits are probably out. That now this fortress is probably mostly either a mix. It's probably more under control by the goblins, or it's unclaimed. It's not claimed, unclaimed. So maybe he was drinking with confidence that he thinks the job is done, that they have the fortress taken back, even though we just walked in, and because we killed those goblins in the front, obviously. So, which is also another sign that this fortress is freshly recaptured by the goblins. So, Loomer he's calculating all this in his head. He's understanding the situation that he's a lone soldier now, again, and but though he has the advantage of knowing the area, at least parts of the other map that we'll turn to in a second, uh, and that's he has two potential allies he can find in the future. So we'll erase this. We're gonna now flip the page to continue on because Loomer is gonna walk down this hall to the next, back to where we were before, actually. Okay, so we are back in our first one of our, I believe it was our first map, one of our definitely first maps, where Loomer was captured. He was in his prison cell here. He's back in the hallway. He wouldn't have walked in here without unless he saw a threat. So there's potentially no one. There's no issue here on the but we don't know exactly what's going on in these halls. We don't know who's in the cells. But remember, there was a lady in here, a female character that we didn't really roll too much about, and I completely forgot about. Besides the fact it was a female character. So because of that, we have Loomer freshly in this new room. Now, I want to continue, but I'm insanely tired right now, mentally and physically. And I'm going to end the video here. We are possibly the last chapter because I am pretty confident we're gonna be able to find these two characters and hopefully we can get their names. Our last two allies who either got captured or got carried away or dead. So that is it for this chapter, you guys. I noticed more feedback are coming. More feedback is coming in. It looks like you guys. I see one or two comments. You guys like this the escape, so I'll try to continue it for at least another chapter. But I'm eager to get to another one I have in line, and it hopefully we can finish this in the next chapter. I hope to record in a few days because again, my work is insanely busy right now, and I'm trying to balance out work and life, just as personal fun. So, as always, thank you for watching. This is 830 RPG, and I'll see you guys next time.